Welcome to Hammered with Cars, Episode 3, presented by Troll Patrol Racing and Johnson Recreational Toys. I'm TJ, this is Tyler, and I guess let's get into it. I don't know what we're going to get into because we don't exactly have an agenda for this morning.
And nonsense. That's
exactly.
What it always is, right?
Yep, just random whatever talk.
Yeah. Not that the other ones were scripted, but this is far from it.
Enjoying some, since it's
Irish
morning,
coffee.
Yeah, Irish coffee is what we're enjoying this morning. I guess to start things off, one of the things that I'm actually surprised I'm a little bit more excited for than I thought I would be is the new, is it called? Yeah. Oh, they're calling it the GR86, not the GT86, the new Toyota GR86.
Yeah.
At first, I didn't really care for the looks because I thought it looked very Porsche Cayenne kind of thing.
Sure.
Not that I don't like the way the Porsche looks, but
Right.
It looked like a copier machine.
Sure, like a copy-paste type thing.
Yeah.
But then you realize that it looks way more similar to the new Z car, and you're okay with it?
Well, it does. And actually, I think that's probably one of the things that I've been thinking about is, the starting price of them is like $27,000, and they've said, or $28,000, closer to $29,000. One of the things they've said though for the Z cars, it's going to be around $40,000 starting out, and with how high materials have gotten and everything, I don't know how it's not going to get released and not be closer to $50,000 or even $60,000 if you start adding on.
Boy, it really
demand.
Really better be pretty special for that if it gets up to that kind of money.
Well, at that point, it's closer to Toyota Supra.
Yeah.
Money.
Like I said, it better be pretty special.
Well, it'll have more power.
Allegedly. Have they released an official figure on what that's supposed to be?
400.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
But sometimes people lie.
Well, and I know people have dynoed the Supra when it first came out, and the numbers were higher than what was advertised.
Oh, so you're saying that the Nissan could be 450?
It could be. It also could be.
Nissan's actually super infamous for that.
It also could be 385.
Right. But the whole gentleman's agreement thing that they had across Japanese manufacturers has kind of gone to the wayside by this point. But
right.
Nissan has been notorious for releasing a specific horsepower figure that was pretty conservative, and the vehicle ended up making a lot more horsepower.
Right.
Even in more modern times, like when the R35 was released, those things I think were supposed to be like 380 when they first came out. Is that right?
No, they were.
Or were they?
I think they were like 450. They were not 380. That would be. No, we gotta look. Well, and one of the things that I was just looking up here was actually to see where the Infiniti Q60S Red Sport baseline dynoed at, because that's the same engine. Now you're talking about an all-wheel drive system, so there's expected to be a little bit more loss.
Yep.
And just from this sppower.com, it looks like it made 350 wheel horsepower.
Yeah.
Which they say seems appropriate for being advertised at 400 bhp.
Yeah, nope, that makes sense.
So,
looking at the R35, while we're still close to that topic. Yeah, the original one was 480.
Yeah.
But I know
380. Geez.
Sorry, I was only off by 100. It's not that big a deal. It'd be more of a big deal if it was advertised at 280 and I said 180.
Yes.
But anyways, my point is that that's supposed to be a crank horsepower rating, and there were people who dynoed the first gen ones and they were making that and more at the wheels. So Nissan and their sketchy business.
Right.
But at least they're under-promising and over-delivering compared to other manufacturers who claim, it makes 300 horsepower, and then it dynos at like 210.
Right.
And that's a major downer.
Yeah. And I mean, this, the other thing that I think is going to be a problem for the Z car compared to the GR86 is 228 horsepower isn't a ton, and that's what they're advertising. But if you kind of use the previous BRZ and stuff like that, some of the numbers people got on that doing some fairly basic mods for SCCA classes and things like that, they were able to get 200 wheel horsepower.
Right. What were they rated at? 200 or 210 crank?
There was just over 200.
Yeah.
So it's 23 horsepower more.
Sure.
According to Car and Driver, the new model is 23 horsepower more. So, could you see something getting maybe 250 to the wheels? Maybe that's a little optimistic. But
yeah, without doing forced induction, doing 250 to the wheels, I don't think is probably going to be super realistic. But
even if you can get 228 to the wheels.
I was going to say you might be able to do 225, 230 to the wheels.
Right.
With, full exhaust and intake and a good tune.
Headers and everything. Yeah, which...
Especially if you tune it for E85.
The other thing that I'm wondering is SCCA has a class basically set up for these cars, which I assume will...
For the new one or for
the previous
all
one?
Of them.
Yeah, yep.
Sure.
The previous ones. And I'm not going to sit here and claim I know what SCCA is planning on doing with the new one, if they're just going to group it all together or what. I'd assume that's not going to be the case. I'd assume they do maybe a new spec class for it. Maybe they won't. But with them already doing the spec class for the older one, I could see them easily making a spec class for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people will gravitate around towards that.
Yep.
Which, I don't know, the Z car, they're not going to do a spec class for. I just don't think it'll be bought with how expensive it potentially could be. The other problem that the Z car actually faces is, I did read the other day that the Supra, they are actually going to be launching a 6-speed manual version.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So...
Oh, you mean what they should have done to begin with?
Yes. Yes. Which they kind of alluded to that was a possibility right from the beginning.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I can't necessarily speak for the older 8.6 cars without doing a quick Google search, but according to Road and Track here, they're now going to have port and direct injection as standard, which is really good because it seems like most direct injected cars, the fuel system is designed to do what the fuel system is meant for stock, and the amount of gains that you can get over stock are relatively limited. And if you want to try and upgrade direct injection pumps or direct injection injectors, it's very expensive.
Right.
Which
is why for the Focus ST,
right, I was just going to say the Focus ST,
they make a specific intake manifold to add port injection.
Yep. But if this already has that from the factory, then that kind of makes your tuning options sky's the limit.
Right. And the other thing that I'm seeing here is that this has a 6.2 0 to 60.
Sure.
Which is the exact same as my ST.
Which is really good for...
Is plenty of fun.
Yeah.
So I could see that being a pretty... But it makes me sad because I really would like to get a new Z car.
Sure.
If that worked out. But it'd be very hard to justify spending, an extra $10,000.
Right. Yep.
I mean, I probably won't have to worry about head gaskets like I would with this.
But that does raise a question, though. Does it do 6.1 seconds to 60 or 6.2 seconds to 60 because
of gearing?
Gearing and power weight ratio is just good enough to get there? Or is it because they took a handling car and just happened to have the suspension set up from the factory that it gets a really good 60-foot time?
I don't know if it really matters.
It matters because having a really fast 60-foot is liable to...
Well, not 60-foot.
No, I know. But the first 60 feet is the most important part of trying to make a 0 to 60 time.
Gotcha.
So...
I understand what you're saying.
If you have it set up to be able to go 0 to 60 as quick as possible, suspension-wise, so that you have the most traction off the line, you're definitely going to be limiting your lateral G-forces.
Right. That's a good point. I guess I don't know.
Not that...
I mean, I think it was only
changeable anyways, because anybody who's going to do Like, if you just want the car stock, yeah, maybe it matters a little bit. But if you're just going to drive the car stock, unless you're doing autocross or SCCA or track days or anything like that, if you're just looking for a good street car, it's going to be a relatively indifferent
Right.
situation.
Right.
And if you are going to do track days and autocross and stuff like that, and you're not looking to stay in a completely stock class, then it doesn't matter anyways, because you're going to change all the suspension anyway.
Exactly. So that was one of the things that I just, looking at it more, reading a little bit more about it, I just thought, I'd love to get a new Z, but I don't know. It'd be a little harder to justify. A new Z obviously would be a lot faster, but
Yeah.
I like tinkering with my cars, and this at least gives you a reason to tinker with it since it's so slow.
So slow.
Not to mention, it'll probably be popular enough. There'll be a swap kit for an LS within a year. So, if you're really that bummed about power.
Let's be honest. There will be a LS swap kit in 10 minutes. So, next topic. I went to the dump the other day with the truck to get rid of scrap materials from our construction project in the house. And since they go by weight when you just are taking garbage over there, went across the scale and I paid specifically close attention to the weight of the truck. And I was somewhat surprised because it's a 2005 Chevy 1500 four-wheel drive extended cab long box. When I think of how much it should weigh, a truck should be astoundingly heavy.
Like, give us a number.
Like 7,000 pounds.
Okay.
But it's not.
That's a little heavy for a 1500.
Right, which I'm coming to understand. It was 5,200 pounds.
And is that, I can't remember, is that a regular cab?
Extended cab.
It is extended cab.
Yep.
To be fair, you said 5,200 pounds.
Yeah.
It's probably lost about 500 pounds.
That is always a possibility. That is always a possibility. Do you want to know what else weighs just over 5,000 pounds? Mercedes S500s, Tesla Model X's, other cars that are not SUVs that weigh, well, naturally Rolls-Royce weighs a boatload. But, the thing that I thought about is the fact that, like, if you have an Audi S4, if I remember correctly, they are approaching 4,000 pounds.
Right. Well, I mean, even Adam's old...
his BMW 5
Series.
Series.
2004, 545. I think that was 3,500 pounds, maybe a little bit less.
Well, like 3,500 is a far cry from 4,000, though, really.
It is, but again, it's a 2004.
Yeah.
And you think of how, it doesn't seem that old, but it's old by quite a bit now. Yep. And compared to all the electronics those cars have now, compared to what his had even.
Yep. Yeah, like if you have a B5 S4, they could potentially weigh 3,700 pounds. That's a lot of car.
Yeah.
For something that's not that big. If you have a...
what's all that? It's that...
If you have a B6...
Stupid all the drum.
If you have... Oh my gosh. First of all, I didn't know that they made an A4 or an S4 in a convertible.
Yeah.
Which, in case you were wondering, it's disgusting.
It's disgusting looking, but the V8 does sound really good.
But they're 4,090 pounds.
4,090 pounds.
If in the convertible, yeah.
Jesus. I did see one of those on Facebook Marketplace because I've kind of wanted to get a convertible just for cruising and stuff like that. And I saw one of those, I was like, man, that's ugly. But then I saw it was the V8, and I was like, well, I know that V8 can sound really good.
Yeah.
Could maybe justify it.
Yeah. Interestingly, they're a 2-door.
Yeah. Most convertibles are anymore. You don't have...
Right.
Did they even make 4-door convertibles way back when? No. Everything was 2-door.
I think there is.
It was just 2 doors where the entire side of the car swung out.
Yeah, the doors are like 7 feet long.
Right.
But I think that there is... oh, wow, there's actually a lot of 4-door convertibles. BMW 8 Series, Benz C-Class, BMW 2 Series. I don't think a 2 Series is a 4-door.
No, it could be.
Did they make a 4-door 2
Yeah,
Series?
because the 2 Series... The 2 Series is like what the 3 Series used to be.
Sure.
You know what I mean? As far as it's why the 2 Series never existed before. But the 3 Series has gotten so big and so expensive that they made the 2 Series.
Yeah, here's what I'm thinking of. Old Lincoln Continental 4-door. The rear doors are suicide doors.
Right. Well, that was just Continentals in general. That wasn't just the convertibles.
Right. But if I was going to buy a convertible, this is what I would buy. It would have to be an old classic that I could sacrilegiously put on bags and drag down Main Street.
I could see that. Like I've tinkered with that idea as well in my head.
Yeah.
The problem I have is I would like to have something for when I inevitably blow up the 300 again.
Well,
that I don't have. No, you could not race.
No, they did it on Top Gear. They did it on Top Gear.
I don't care what they did on Top Gear. I don't want to race it for comedy. I want to race it because I want to enjoy driving.
What are you talking about?
Oh,
Top Gear. I'm sorry, it wasn't even on Top Gear. It was on the Grand Tour, which is better. Mm-hmm. And it's a historically, factually, informational, educational show. It's not comedy.
Oh. Did you watch that episode last night where they...
No, I didn't watch it last night, but I watched it a while ago.
Did you?
Last week, yeah.
I literally watched that episode last night where they're in America with the Corvette and stuff like that. Anyways, but no, I would want something I can enjoy taking to the track and not have to rush to get the 300 back together. Just because some of the things that I have done when I've been rushed has just ended up not working out.
Oh, you mean like over tightening your timing belt twice?
I wasn't rushed for that. But
well,
no, I wasn't.
You just took away your own excuse.
To be fair, the factory service manual does not offer a good way to check that.
That's why you don't use the factory service manual.
Well, I figured something out. And now it works fine. Now I don't have to worry about it.
That's why you just use German specs. Guten tight.
Just
one of the most important things that I ever learned when I worked at Kelly Moss is tights tight and 2 tights broke, and you went too tight.
No, because technically it didn't break right away. In fact,
still broke.
In fact, the second time that I did it, I took it to Blackhawk Farms and raced it. I took it to the Dells and raced it.
Which means you didn't make it as tight.
Apparently.
Or you had AMSOIL in there that time to just lubricate it.
Oh, I had the AMSOIL in it every time.
Oh, okay.
What else was I going to use? If I'm not going to use AMSOIL, I might as well just piss in it, you know?
It's either AMSOIL or peanut oil, right?
Right. Yes, there you go. Bacon fat.
So,
but I want something I could take to the track.
Sure.
The problem I have is the obvious choice would be like a Miata or an S2000.
Yeah, but you can't do that. You got too many bodies in your house.
Exactly. I want something I can fit people in. And I actually would get an older muscle car convertible because that would be something that I could kind of slowly build up as well. That's something I would enjoy.
Like a Camaro or a Chevelle
or a Mustang.
Did
they have they did have a Chevelle convertible. Probably not a Chevelle. Chevelle's a little too big, I think.
Yeah, but they're so nice. I like them a lot.
Yeah. I don't know.
If I was given the option to buy comparable Camaro or a Chevelle, depending on the exact year, I would say probably 60 or 70% of the time I'd go with a Chevelle.
What about 2002?
They didn't make a Chevelle, so...
Well, then I guess you can't buy one.
That's also not technically an older muscle car. You would call that like a mid-range.
It's 2 decades old.
What are you trying to say?
It's old. It's a classic.
What does that mean about me? Am I a classic now?
Yep. That's why you're bald.
Oh, my hair's gone.
So, and I don't know, because like I could see getting it, and I could justify an older one and accept that. Okay, it's going to be a little floppy because it's a convertible, but it'd be hard for me to buy like a 2004 Mustang convertible.
Why?
Because it's too new for it to be floppy, if that makes sense.
What? Yeah,
it shouldn't be floppy. I'm afraid it would be. I haven't driven one. I'm afraid it will be floppy because that's generally what happens with any convertible that's not designed as a convertible. Especially in those years.
I see what you're saying.
Especially in those years. It's better now because of the technology that we utilize now and stuff like that. But when you're talking about what 2004, even 2005, 2009 style, I'm afraid it'll be too floppy, and that would kill it. Or at least I think it would. I don't know.
Well, there's a really easy way to test it.
Buy one.
Well, yeah, but that's not that easy because that involves some financial commitment. But I was just going to say, if you ever just go to look at one, just take a jack with you and jack it up really far forwards or backwards on one corner. And
if it doesn't lift both wheels off the ground. If it doesn't, jack it up at the rear, and if it doesn't lift 3 wheels off the ground, not good enough.
Jeez, that's a high standard.
That's what the Z can do.
Yeah, but the suspension doesn't really work on that car.
Yes, it does. It works just fine.
Okay. No, it's not that bad. No.
I was going to say, who wins the most?
The guy that drives a car that's as rigid as a go-kart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And $295.
Yeah. Well, that guy might be able to get FTD if his suspension worked properly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I can't do anything about the front.
You can. You're just not willing to.
Oh, you're right. There is something I can do. It'll take time to do it.
That's what R&D is all about.
Which is fine, but that's exactly why I want a second car. Because I don't want to
down for an extended period.
Yes, because I don't want to have to rush it to get it done.
What about that one specific time of year from October to April? What about that gap? Was there any particular reason that you couldn't do your suspension work?
Yes, there is. I'm too busy.
Is that what they call it these days?
Yep, that is what they call it these days. I'm too busy.
So, I finally made some progress on the Sonoma.
Oh, yeah.
Thing's all blown into a million pieces. That was
one of the other things I wanted to mention. Yes, it is in a million pieces right now. Finally have that piece of shit 2.2 liter pulled out.
Yeah, and it's better than that. I don't have it anymore. I can't like accidentally drop it back in the truck. I sold it last night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
And it's gone.
It's gone. It's not here. It's in Illinois.
Did you sell
deep into Illinois.
Did you sell the transmission and everything too with it?
No.
Or? Okay.
Nope, he didn't want the transmission. His transmission was good. He bought a slew of other parts though, like coil packs. What all did he buy? Coil packs, mechanical fan clutch, starter, flywheel, and clutch assembly. A couple other little bits.
So now you really have no excuse because now you have a little extra funds to keep things going.
Well, no.
Oh.
Because
that money had already been allocated.
Fortunately, because of the way that I operate my business, being a performance-oriented business, I am able to use my truck as advertisement, so all of the upgrades that are done on my truck are a business write-off. So the cash that I received is going to go to non-write-off things, like rebuilding our kitchen.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's not really a concern of available funds for building the truck. I have most of the expensive stuff anyways.
Right, you got the standalone.
I've already got the MS3, the engines together, the clutch. I already have the clutch and flywheel.
The big thing, if I remember correctly, would be the wiring, which seems like it's going to be easier.
Cost prohibitive at all.
No, but it does seem like it got. You're right. You already have it.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's going to be easier than you originally thought.
Yeah,
because of the way the harnesses and sub harnesses were set up.
We'll see how it goes. If I decide to try and use the OEM fuse box, it will be easy because rather than being a fuse box that has 200 pins in the back of it, it has 4 different sub harnesses that are a big chunky connector that go into the back of it and then have a bolt that holds them in.
Okay.
So I can remove like all the lighting on the front clip, headlights, blinkers, turn signals. That's one harness. And then there's one harness that goes to the back of the truck for the fuel pump and sending unit. And then there is another harness that goes into the cab for all of the interior lighting and dash and all of that stuff. And then there's another harness that goes to the engine. So,
why do you think they did that? Do you think they did it to make it simpler?
Because they knew that in the year 2022, some guy was going to do a whack job engine swap, and he was going to appreciate those sub harnesses.
That's interesting. I would have guessed, that they had a bunch of warranty issues and stuff, and they were getting tired of tearing the entire harness out every time when they had issues in very different places.
I don't know how far back that concept goes. I don't know if it was in all the second gens, or if it was just the later ones, or if it was even in the first gens.
Yep.
So I don't know. That is a plausible theory, though.
Right.
Yeah. Who knows, really? So, but yeah.
Then the next thing is the headers. Correct?
Yeah. Yep. That's going to be the most cost prohibitive and potentially time consuming thing going forwards.
Right.
The good news is
cost prohibitive. Is it?
The way I'm going to do it, probably. I'm not going to build them myself. I'm going to...
Are you going to take them to Killer Fabrication?
I could, but no. Just for ease of use, and I'm hoping... I need to contact one of these companies that... basically, you contact them, they send you a box full of elbows, and you use PVC. And
okay.
You build a set of PVC headers and glue them together and ship them back, and then they send you a set of manufactured headers. So I need to start contacting them to see what their time frames are looking like. As far as price goes, depending on exact quantity of materials, depending on if I just do like a mid-length header or if I go full long to where they go all the way down under the truck. Prices, I haven't checked since
before
the market's gone insane. But previously, when I looked, prices were anywhere from like $1,300 to $1,500. So it's a cost, but it's not astronomical.
It's probably closer to $1,800 now.
Maybe so. And to be completely honest, that's still okay. Because I didn't look around to try and find the cheapest place to get raw stainless, but when I had looked, it was looking like it was going to be like close to $1,000 in materials between flanges, tubing, and collectors. And I was like, well, for $300 or $500, if I can save myself 50 hours of R&D and jacking around and then trying to learn how to TIG weld or having somebody else do it, I'll just do it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I would have done it for you with my flux core welder and we could have just gone to the auto parts store, cut some exhaust piping up, and
I also recently acquired a flux core welder.
Yes.
And I wish that somebody like Frankie would have warned me that they're just no good.
They're okay.
No, they're hot garbage.
They're just
even if you have the metal ultra clean. If you're spot on with your prep work, they still do not weld well.
Mine, I don't know. So the most recent thing I've done is a brace for the 300 that I was trying to weld. But the bigger problem is not the welder itself. It was more the fact that I don't have a lift or anything to get under there. So the car is, 2 feet off the ground, and
Sure.
I'm trying to climb under it, and the angles for it just suck.
Sure.
And the angle matters a lot, I feel like, with the flux core.
Oh,
but
like
when
for
I made
pushing your heat?
Right.
Yeah.
But when I made the shelf for the to put all of our booze and stuff in the house, it worked fine for that. But I could also just do it right on the work table and everything like that. I do know it works a lot better with obviously thicker stuff like 1/8 material. You can,
Yeah.
you can get away with doing decent welds. It's definitely not as good as MIG.
Yeah. Now, I don't claim to be a professional welder at all.
Right.
Not even a little bit. But I can MIG weld pretty darn good. It might take me a little bit to get my heat and wire speed figured out, but once I got her dialed in, I can lay some pretty solid beads. But with that flux core welder, it just looked like somebody was just stabbing a stick welder all over the place. It was not good. Probably doesn't help that I didn't really have an actual welding helmet, so I had a pair of sunglasses on, and then I had my torch goggles on, and then I had my torch shield over that.
Jeez.
It worked, but
Did it?
Yeah. I can still see. So.
Right. No, because I kind of had the same problem. Like I just had trouble fitting my welding helmet, and finally I did get my welding helmet on. But I was basically like, okay, this is where I'm going to do it. Shut my eyes. No, that didn't work. Like, what else was
Oh, that's 7 inches away from where I wanted to be.
Right. It just wasn't working. But yeah, no, it's probably worth the extra money just to go straight to the MIG.
Oh, yeah. Well, thankfully I didn't have to pay for this. I didn't even have to buy the wire for it. It was already in it. I'm just borrowing it from my dad.
Oh, okay.
And they've had it for like a decade.
Okay.
And they've never used it.
Okay.
Because they have a really nice big snap-on MIG welder.
The one thing I do like about mine is it's the Harbor Freight titanium inverter style. So it's really compact and everything.
Sure.
But when I bought the protection plan, and if I take it in, I can take it back in within that 2 years of the protection plan and basically exchange it and upgrade to something else.
Yeah,
and
they'll
I'll
let
get
you
the full,
basically give you the full value
yep,
of
the full value, yep, as a return back to something else.
Sure.
So there's that benefit, which is kind of what ultimately pushed my decision to, just do it, because I don't have room for gas in my garage right now or anything like that. So there was no point in which... I know you can run a MIG welder and just run flux core wire and use it like a flux core welder.
Damn.
But at the time, I just thought
Ideally.
there's no point in spending the extra money right now when I can just take this thing. I mean, it's so small, so compact. I can just.
Right.
It's so nice to take around. And actually, I know my brother once. He was looking at that specific one to take off-roading, because when you bust an axle or something
in the middle of
all you're doing
nowhere.
is right, and in the middle of nowhere. But if you want to, I mean, it's 2 days you're up there. You break an axle and you don't have one,
right.
You're done for the weekend.
Yep.
And
unless you have a welder.
Right, and the max speed you may be doing is 10 miles an hour because it's all off-roading, climbing, and stuff like that. So you can at least
So if it breaks,
you can at least
really
try and weld it, because it's 220 or not 220, 120. So you can at least try and weld something back together and scab it together.
And even if you're really in the middle of nowhere, if you've got a generator with you, you
right.
can still run it.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
So that was one of those things. It's like, okay, I might as well just try it, so I was getting tired of, for brackets and stuff, it was like, okay, it would be so much better if I just had some way to weld, and I had no way to weld. That gave me a way to weld, and essentially there was no risk, because I could either take it back or I could sell it to my brother because he wanted it.
Right. Yep. So with the Sonoma,
yeah,
we got to see how things go.
Yeah.
And how quickly I can get the engine in and running and all that good stuff. But there's a few other things. I think we've talked about this before, but there's a few other things that I really want to do while it's apart. I want to switch over to a aluminum core support.
Yep.
And then I still have the aluminum bumper out of Adam's E36.
Oh.
And it's almost the exact same shape, and it fits very nicely in
Does
the
it?
cover. It'll just take very minimal modifications.
Do you have to change mounting location?
Yeah, like I'll keep the same mounts on the frame. Keep the same mounts on the frame.
Right.
But like German cars, specifically from the 90s into the early 2000s, they have like a shock absorber that just has a bolt that goes down through them.
Okay.
And that's how that was attached. But for this, it has like a horn that comes up and one that comes down off the frame.
Okay.
And the bumper slides over top of them. And I think I'll be able to utilize maybe only one of them. So I might have to make a custom bracket to hit the bottom of the bumper. But it's also only like 4 inches tall. So
right.
It might not matter anyways. As long as it's just attached with the two.
Right.
That might be sufficient. So, but then I'm also thinking about possibly deleting the inner fenders. I know that when you and I talked about it before, there was a concern of aero. So I'll have to consider that.
Right.
And what sort of effects that would have. But the thing is that they don't really like seal off to the inside of the fender anyway, or to the inside of the engine bay anyways.
Because on the underside?
Yeah, at the bottom, between the frame rail and the inner fender, there's a section that's probably 5 or 6 inches tall where it's open in there anyways. So it's not like it really creates a pressure zone or a vacuum zone.
So would you add any bracing or anything like that? Because I mean
Nope.
Okay.
They don't really offer much for structural integrity, I don't think.
They're metal, right?
Yep.
Is there any like plastic version you could get?
I mean, I would have to do some looking and see if there's like a fiberglass or a composite of some sort out there. There's not one that I can think of off the top of my head. But they are so simple in shape that I could easily just make a mold and make fiberglass ones and extend them so that they actually did seal off the fender well.
Right.
Yeah. Or I could even just use flat steel and just make like an angular one.
Right.
Yeah, because there will be plenty of room in there to do that.
Well, there's no real benefit, like you can't, as far as like running a bigger tire size or anything like that to removing them.
No, not really.
Because you can run, did you say
there are
315s?
people who have fit 315s with very, very, very minor or no rubbing. You have to have like the exact right set of wheels with the exact right size spacer to have no rubbing.
Okay.
But it is doable. There are people that have done it.
I guess the only other thing was like if you were going to add venting to the hood or anything like that that's going to be pulling engine out of the engine bay, then maybe it wouldn't matter if you had them gone or not.
Yep.
You know.
Well, the reason that I'm considering doing it is between dropping the inner fenders and all the hardware, the number of bolts that hold them on is astronomical.
Right.
And they're big. They're not like a 6mm bolt. They're like they must be a 10mm bolt. So they're pretty thick and they're long. They're like 1.5 inches long.
Really?
I'll bet you just in bolts, there's probably 3 pounds just in bolts that hold the inner fenders in.
That's ridiculous.
And the thing is if you delete the inner fenders, then you can actually gut the fenders because you have the outer shell of the fender, and then there's a whole bunch of inner sheet metal shaped like this where the inner fender attaches to.
Yeah.
But if you don't have an inner fender that needs to attach to it, you can gut the inner fenders. And I think that between getting rid of the inner fenders, the hardware, and gutting the fenders, it should be able to save somewhere around 40 pounds off the front of the truck, which is
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Especially with how heavy the front of the truck is.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to save any weight by doing the engine swap, correct?
I don't think I'm going to save weight, but I don't think I'm going to gain any weight. Right. So,
now will you save weight on the transmission? Because you're going from the NV to the T5,
it should be pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah, the NV I think is like 10 pounds heavier, maybe.
Is there a reason you went away from the NV? Like, does it not bolt up? Or?
It does not have a removable bell housing.
Okay.
And it doesn't have the right pattern on the bell housing to fit to my Rover engine, whereas the T5. In hindsight, I maybe would have went with an older one like out of a Camaro or even an older one out of an S10 that had the Chevy pattern, because then it would bolt directly to the bell housing.
Oh.
The only thing is, the way that I did it, I went with a world-class T5 that has the Ford pattern, which is what came in the 94 and 95 S10s. And to adapt the Ford pattern T5 to the old school Buick bell housing or a Rover bell housing, there's a 1-inch thick adapter plate in there.
Right.
And with that adapter plate in there, the factory transmission mount fits perfect. And my engine has like a 1/2-inch clearance against the firewall. So it's perfect that way. If I didn't do that, if I just went with
the standard
old school GM pattern T5, then I would either have to make a different transmission mount, or I would have to cut into my firewall to get the engine further back, which would be way more work, but it would be better for weight distribution.
Like you said, way more work, and I don't know if it'd really be worth it.
No, I mean, if I was going to do that, if I was going to chop into the firewall for the sake of weight distribution, I'd also be changing the transmission mount to shove the entire thing back like 6 inches or 8 inches to actually really
make a difference.
Yeah. And I'd have a mid-engine Sonoma.
Yeah, I was going to say, technically be a mid-engine.
Which technically...
It is. Or
it almost... Close. It's close. Like, the center line of the engine is behind the center line of the wheels. As so, yeah.
Yeah, I think with the Z31, if you were going to do an NA setup, because they had so much clearance between the firewall and the engine for the crossover tube and the turbos, if you really wanted to, you could have 4 or
5 inches easy.
Yeah, you could
without
almost
any
6 inches, I think.
Yeah. Things for sure that are happening on the Sonoma while it's apart is the battery's going under the box. Hopefully I'm going to be able to keep AC.
That's right, yeah.
Hopefully this week here I'm going to be able to get the Rover engine and all that stuff from my parents' house and get it over here and start getting it fitted in this week to verify. But looking at pictures that I'd taken of it fitted in the old chassis that was a non-AC truck, compared to looking at this one in person, I think I might be able to keep the AC, which would be phenomenal.
That would be very nice.
Yeah.
That would be... One reason I like driving other people's cars, and then I could take my Focus to the track and have air conditioning.
Yeah. You know, when you get done at the autocross in the middle of July, and it's been 87 degrees all day with the sun beating down on you.
In July, I'm trying like 95. And if it's 87, it's like 87 and 95% humidity.
Right.
So it might as well be 100.
Yeah, right. But you get cruising down the road without your AC, and it's kind of like, oh, that breeze feels nice. But I wish I had AC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the past, like the Sonoma is the first race vehicle I've ever had that has AC. Everything else I've had before that didn't have AC.
Right.
Does
the Corvette not have AC?
It has it, but it doesn't work.
Is that?
So we'll get that fixed though while we're doing the transmission, maybe.
Yeah.
But first time I got done on an autocross in the Sonoma, and I rolled the windows up and I turned the AC on, I was like, oh, this is what heaven's like. It was so nice. You know, by the time you make it 20 minutes away from the track, you're cooled off. But then you just got to deal with the salt deposits that are left all over your body.
So I guess one of the things I'm wondering is with the Sonoma, with the headers and everything possibly being literally months before you could get those, is the plan to have the C4 then ready for the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the C4 is, other than the transmission, there's not really anything that I have to do.
Right.
To have it race.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, if it comes right down to it.
Because you already did the brakes, right?
No, that's right. I do need to do something with the brakes. Especially if the 6-speed helps it be any faster.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, absolute worst case scenario, I can just put OEM pads and rotors back in it and get rid of the hot
or at
garbage
least
that's in it right
some
now.
decent pads. I don't know if I go with OEM pads.
Well, yeah,
But
that's what I
OEM
mean,
size,
like OEM style.
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't
Oh, yeah, no,
necessarily
That
have
would
to
be-
do the breakup.
That'd probably be
right
more
now.
than enough, because I
Yeah.
think that was the problem with your brakes more than anything. It was not necessarily the
Yeah.
size of them. I think it was just
Yep.
it's got some
Yep.
generic.
They always
out of
worked.
parts store.
It always stopped. They never faded.
They always smell.
But holy hera, that is the worst smelling brakes I've ever smelled at an autocross. Like, you go to the big track and it's like, oh, okay, the brakes smell because people are abusing the crap out of
Right.
it. But on autocross,
Yeah,
stopping from 60 miles
at
an
Jefferson.
hour, and it's like, is my car on fire? It's not good.
So you'll at least have that going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what do I have left that I need to get? I need to get a slave cylinder, and I need to get the torque arm, and I think that's it. Everything else came with the kit that I bought.
Right.
So those parts are super readily available on eBay. I can get the hydraulics anywhere.
Right, right.
Any part store, but that torque arm is available on eBay super readily. So it's something that can be knocked out in a day or two.
You know what else is getting upgraded this year?
Your minivan.
The Camaro.
Oh,
Because it has.
what's that actually getting? Is it getting suspension?
I guess technically it's a part of the suspension, or technically it's a part of the driveline. But from the rear end, there's an arm that goes up and connects to the transmission.
Yeah, the torque arm.
Yes, the torque arm.
The torque arm, if it was a Nissan.
Because when me and Dan were racing it down at Davenport SCCA event, pouring rain, and I think part of the problem is that it's a 2-hour drive, and that thing runs a little rich. It's a 750 CFM carburetor, and it
Sure.
literally bought it at a swap meet, threw it on the car ran, and we've raced it. Haven't done anything tuning-wise with it since, because the air-fuel ratio wasn't that bad. It's like, it's a little rich. But I think in that 2-hour drive, mainly cruising.
It's only 9-1. It's fine.
Right. Cruising on the interstate, I think it ended up fouling the plugs.
Oh, okay.
And so then when we went racing, I'd literally be full, watt, going down, foot come all the way off the pedal and onto the brake. And it would just dump a ton of fuel within that time, and it killed the engine. And it did this one time to the point where it was so violent, it literally just tore the rubber mount as it got shocked forward and just popped and bent. It bent the mount in that torque arm and then just popped out.
Is that like when you get back on the gas?
No, it was coming off.
Really?
Yes.
And because that's not really necessarily a function of the engine shutting off. That's just the function of engine braking, which means it was bound to fail regardless of how the car was running.
Well, yeah, I do think so. I think that, but it was stopping suddenly because you're in gear and everything,
right? And
all of a sudden the engine just locks up.
Yep.
It just, and maybe what it was is that it kind of. Maybe I was on the throttle, off the throttle, and then got right back on the throttle, and then that popped out,
right.
And then it suddenly died, and so it was maybe just out far enough that it just bent over.
Sure.
So that happened, and in the pouring rain, we were able to at least bend the arm back and stick it back up in the car, and he was able to drive home fine. But it's one of those things, he doesn't really want to drive it anywhere because he's too worried about it. Obviously doesn't want to race it. And so he's like, yeah, I'm gonna
So is it getting an upgraded torque arm?
Yeah, so it'll actually, if I'm not mistaken, it'll actually mount to the chassis now. Because right now it mounts up to the transmission. And this is the other problem people have is when they start running too much power, it'll actually crack the transmission case because it's aluminum.
Right.
So there's a company that makes a kit and everything.
Who's he going with?
I have no idea.
Well, you should look into UMI.
Yeah.
They make those.
Or
QA1.
I have no idea who he's looking at. He's probably looking at QA1, unless there's something cheaper on Summit.
Cheaper's not better. Buy some American-made products.
Fair point, but
Dan's a patriotic fella.
Dan doesn't really need everything. He just needs the mounting bracket, and then it literally could just have two ends.
I know.
And he would just weld it himself with
those companies
scrap
sell
that he's got around.
just that individual product.
And
though.
he-
They don't, you don't have to buy it in a package deal.
Right.
So
And maybe that's what he will do. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in detail about it. But so that's what that's getting. I will say I don't know. I was looking at maybe getting micro squirt or mega squirt for the 300, and then
I bet you're leaving 10% power on the table.
Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. That's
And aside from the 10% peak, I bet you're leaving even more than that total under the curve.
Could be.
And I bet you're leaving a lot of drivability on the table.
Yeah, probably.
And then you could get rid of
My
the
God.
Nissan garbage.
I don't know what I'm gonna
And
do.
then,
But
I don't have anything else to say.
But I did see someone who had, custom intake manifold. It's like $1,200. The system, the standalone. He said he bought it with the guy that offers the plug-and-play harnesses, which is what I'd get. So he spent at least $1,200. Could have spent $1,600. I can't remember if he had the micro squirt or the mega squirt
Sure.
gold box. Took it in, got it tuned, and he made just shy over 300 horsepower. And all I could think of was Kyle threw some 270 cams in his and was running stock ECU and made 315 horsepower.
Well, there's a couple of things to consider. Did that guy have an upgraded turbo, or
I'd have to go back and
was
look.
it a completely stock car with a fancy intake?
I believe he had an upgraded turbo because he had the custom intake and everything. And
Was
he
it
made
the right one? Did he have upgraded injectors?
Yes.
Were they the right ones? Did he have an upgraded fuel pump? Was it the right one? There's just so many variables.
You're right.
And then it comes down to, was that dude on an absolute heartbreaker dyno? Maybe on the same dyno Kyle ran on, it would make 350.
Again, a possibility. It was a hub dyno. As compared
Why
to a
would be
chassis
more
dyno.
accurate?
So I don't.
Maybe Kyle was on a dyno day dyno, which he was.
No, he wasn't. It wasn't a dyno day.
Oh, he wasn't at a dyno day.
It was. He
Oh,
took it to
okay,
ASM.
I thought he went
Specifically
to a dyno day.
to-
Gotcha. Well, yeah, no. And now that you mention that, specifically going to ASM,
I believe it was.
I
ASM,
believe
if I'm not
those
mistaken.
are going to be solid, accurate numbers.
Right.
Those, if you go to a dyno day, sometimes those are
The only other thing that I can say is
screwed with,
even-
and they give pretty inaccurately high numbers.
right. Even if he was at a dyno day, him and I both done pretty baseline tunes.
Sure.
So I wouldn't be surprised by the number he's hitting, now, just
Right.
from what we've seen before.
Yep.
And that was on the same dyno that
Right.
him and I had those baseline tunes, basically.
Right.
So, I mean, and really, you would expect the power to go up just because his rev range capability is going to go up.
Maybe. He has
As long as torque
he has
doesn't go
those-
down and it spins
He has
faster.
those cams, so yes,
Right,
that
right. That's
I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying just because he simply revved it higher, it makes more power, but that's not necessarily true. But
as long as you're
because
making
he
the
has-
same torque as you were in a lower rev,
Yeah.
essentially.
because he has those cams, yes, I would agree.
Right.
Yep.
But so I don't know. That was one of those things that was just like, man, I'd really hate to spend $1,200 and which I don't know. I'd be fine with 300 horsepower, so I don't know what. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Troll
I
Patrol.
guess if you look at it for a long-term goals,
Right.
MS3 is going to serve you always.
Right. Exactly. That is the one thing I think about. It's like, okay, I could use an MS3 with anything or in anything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's just it.
Because
It
if I
will-
wanted
it
to
will
go to
serve
an
you
LS,
always
I could just
for this
get a
car.
different harness and
If you do swap to a different engine, like you just said,
Right.
it works for that. if you pile drive it into a wall, you could take it out and put it in a different car.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be the same car. It
Right.
can be any car.
Right.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that is partially the main reason where I thought, okay, it's worth the extra. And this may not be, from the source that I'm looking at, it's worth the extra $400 to go with the plug and play in gold box from the person I can get it from.
Oh yeah, if it
Just
only costs
because-
you an extra $400
Right.
to have a plug and play harness, 100% worth it.
But $400 is half my tire budget.
Tough luck. Is your time worth anything?
Oh no, I get the plug and play.
Do you want to end up like this?
No.
Oh, your hair will fall out if you build your
I
own
want to
harness.
look like that. I didn't get the ball jeans. Dan got the ball jeans.
Whoops.
But no, either way, I'm going to get the plug and play harness. Even at the 1200, it's just a micro squirt instead of the MS3 Gold.
Right.
So I'm going to get the plug and play harness regardless because
Yep.
I will screw it up if I don't get the plug and play harness.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do not have that option. Turns out not a lot of people put Rover engines in S10s.
Not
Actually,
surprised.
no one has.
Right. Because every time you say that to someone, they're, oh.
Well, here's a question that I have. I haven't really looked. I've seen that you put a little information on the Facebook page about me
Yeah,
getting
yep,
started on that.
yep.
Were there any comments?
No.
Hateful,
No.
derogatory, nasty comments?
No, nothing.
I wonder if it's just the audience that I appear to when I post on.
Well, I didn't share it as widely as I do the memes.
Right.
Partially because that's just going to some meme pages and stuff like
Sure.
that. So
But
that could be why it just didn't get as
like I shared that same basic information on the S10 handling page and S10 connection page, and same as always, 90% of the comments are like,
You're an idiot.
"What are you doing? Oh, why'd you pick the most unreliable engine known to man? Oh, have fun with all those oil leaks and head gaskets blown out." It's like, come on, you guys. Give me a break. I don't care. They're not telling me anything new. I already know that
Right.
those are concerns with those engines.
Right.
And that's why it got a complete rebuild. And that's why it got head studs. And that's why it's going to get a radiator so fat that there's going to be no room for anything else in the front of the truck.
I guess you won't be able to run AC
And that's
then.
why, they're already doing that. And that's why it's gonna have a 160-degree thermostat. You know, I did my research. I know what I'm doing. Why you spend that much money on that engine when you can just do an LS for $300? Well, first of all,
It's not an LS.
I can't do an LS for $300.
Well, and it's right. Yeah, you can because it's not an LS. It's
Yeah.
a Vortec. But
Well, yeah.
there's the first thing. I mean, he can't even get the engine right, so don't even listen to him.
Right. But now it's just always a point of contention, that Rover engine, and I'm excited to make the magic happen with it, just so I can say, see.
I'm excited too because when it gets on the dyno and it makes
180
160 horsepower, you're gonna go.
No, I mean they're factory rated at 180, and this has got an upgraded cam and some head work done.
So it probably will be like 180 wheel horsepower.
No, there is that possibility, but I think it should make 200 or 210 to the wheels. So, which is over double what it made with the 2.2.
Yep.
So, and it does have 373 gears, so it'll feel peppy.
I gotta be honest. If that was your power goal, you should have just put a VG30 ET in it.
No,
Yep.
no.
Yeah, because you don't even have to do anything to the heads or anything. You just
Well,
turn that boost up, put an
I'm looking at
intercooler
this.
on it.
I'm looking at this a little bit long term.
Supercharging.
It's going to be moderately expensive, but there is a company called TA Performance that makes an actual good set of heads for that engine
Okay.
that still works with OEM manifolds.
Okay.
And the long-term goal is to be able to get a set of those heads and give the low end a refresh with a set of better connecting rods.
Okay.
And I should be able to make 450 horsepower, naturally aspirated.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. And then if I want to go
For 2
whole
seconds.
hog, right?
400 horsepower. 2 seconds.
That was cool.
Still in it.
But if I want to go whole hog, then yeah, I could go turbocharge. And that's an option that I'll have to weigh
Supercharged.
when I decide, no, it'll be
Yeah.
turbocharged. It would be cool, but superchargers are hard on crank bearings, man.
Oh my god.
Turbochargers are not.
I guess. Just get rid of your AC. They do same power draw about.
No. With it shut off, it's a no power draw.
I already know about it.
Why don't you get rid of your AC?
I don't have AC. By get rid of my AC, do you mean just
I
take a
want you to
hammer to
weld-
my T-tops?
I want you to weld your T-tops in.
No.
Even though they're glass, I can make it happen.
I can. It's called epoxy. It's basically welding.
Right?
That's what I keep saying about soldering. It's basically welding.
It's basically welding.
Before we finish up here, Troll Patrol consumer tip. Gas prices are expected to go up in spring, so don't buy a truck now. Wait till everyone goes to sell theirs.
Speaking of trucks, the truck market is wild right now.
Yeah,
Um,
hence the tip I just gave.
right. And I think Cletus McFarland undersold himself because they were selling their 2014 Ram
Okay.
2500 or 3500
Okay.
with a Cummins in it.
Yep.
91,000 miles on it.
Okay.
Really clean. I
Yep.
think it was a Laramie.
Okay.
So well optioned.
Yep.
And they're selling it for 35,000.
Was it a salvage title?
Yeah.
Was it a flood title?
Yeah. At least they didn't say it was. But even in this market,
35,000 is really cheap.
yeah.
Sure, it didn't like have a blown engine.
Well, they drove it into the video and it sounded pretty good. It's completely stock, which is shocking that it wasn't deleted and tuned.
Well, I don't know why they would.
Delete and tune it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Cummins, man.
I don't know. There's they do more fun things than that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, no.
You know.
I mean, they wouldn't do that for the channel, but they would do that because car guys.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't. Like, I don't know. Just wouldn't serve a purpose.
Fuel economy. Which there's people that will debate that.
Right.
I'm holding out to see what Gail Banks has to say.
There you go.
Since they're
that's probably
California,
wise.
all of their non-emissions compliant content has stopped, and I am super bummed out because they were
really?
doing a lot of really, really cool stuff.
Stop just across the board, like they won't even sell it to out of state.
Oh, I don't know about their products. I haven't looked. Most of their products have
Then
been
what are you-
emissions compliant as
Then
far
what are you
as I
talking
know.
about? They're not emissions.
Their content on YouTube, because they were doing.
Oh.
They had two awesome projects going that I was following religiously. Like I would check every day to see if there was a new video, even though they
Gotcha.
only come out like once a month or every couple months. There was building a monster truck engine where they were doing twin charged, so it was supercharged and turbocharged, so that they could get the low end response and the high end horsepower.
Right.
Stopped. I don't think they made a video on that for 6 months or more. And then killing a Duramax. They had the newest generation of the Duramax.
Yeah, I do remember seeing.
Completely
I didn't
sealed
watch any of
engine.
them, but I did. Yeah.
Outside of coolers and injectors and stuff like that, they were just pushing it as far as they could to see how much horsepower it could handle.
Right.
Stopped. No more content. Super bummed out.
Well, here's some advice, Banks. Leave California.
Yeah, go to Texas, go to Florida, go
Come to
almost.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, they're going to want to be in one of the cities, and most of the cities have emissions compliance stuff around here too.
Don't move to one of the cities.
Move to Darlington.
Here you go.
Gail Banks.
We're not
Darlington,
We're not in
Wisconsin.
Darlington. We're not in Darlington. Telling people where we're at.
I don't care. My business is here. Come to Darlington.
That's a good point. That is already on the
Come to
website.
Johnson Recreational Toys. Spend your money with me. I can make your car really fast. I can make it handle. I can do your oil change, but I don't really want to.
Well, I think that about covers it for this episode.
Yeah. I don't have anything else burning a hole in my brain that I need to talk about.
Well, I'm out of a drink, so that's a good enough reason for me to end it.
Yeah.
I guess until next time, thanks for joining us for episode 3, and we'll catch you in the next month.
And keep the shiny side up.
Alrighty.